Morning, Professor. This is Francisco Grijalva in your disabilities course. I believe it's 380. I'm going to talk about cross-cultural competency and how it relates to my life. I'm studying to be a social worker, so I'm taking my practicum now at Halikipa YO. YO is an acronym for Youth Outreach. I work with homeless youth in Waikiki, predominantly from the Kaka'ako area. If you're knowledgeable on the houseless community in town. I wanted to talk about a couple terms. Cultural communication or cross-cultural communication in regards to cultural competency is very difficult to say that you're competent in any culture, even your own. Like, I'm Mexican American and I speak Spanish, but I was predominantly raised in a border town that everyone spoke English. But because it was a border town, there was the Mexican influence right across the border. So my food and how I speak, my dialect is actually pretty close to Mexican. But I was raised with an American education. So my English and Spanish in my brain are called, I can code switch up and down. And so I might have some cultural maybe competency in maybe American English and Mexican Spanish, but that doesn't mean I'm a master at both. But as far as acculturation, or I can't read that, acculturation, which basically means to culturally modify an individual, group, or people, adapting and borrowing traits. So like, yeah, I believe most people are, especially in new environments, are like chameleons. We see our environment and we study the culture, and you might catch yourself, throwing a shotgun saying, "How's it?" to people. And you're from Southern California, where you usually just say like, "Hey, yo, what's up?" And I think it's important to understand, and what I'm trying to say is that you have all these competencies to check if you're doing it correctly, like Principle 1 all the way through 9, or be aware of influence, culture, health, stuff, belief. It's really well said, but it's very hard to practice these things in real life unless you're cultured and you've traveled and you have experiences where you might have been rude on accident. You didn't have cultural competency and you didn't take the time to understand the culture, or you start to realize that a lot of different cultures, similar like to Hawaiian and Pacific Islander culture, where it's collectivist based, where it's very family orientated, and usually there's a patriarchal or matriarchal person that tells everybody kind of what to do, or maybe the leader, the guidance, the person that kind of directs everyone, which is similar to Latin American culture. That's not to say that there still isn't an individual aspect, because Hawaii has so much influence from mainland America. And when I work with kids on the houseless community, a lot of these kids are Hawaiian, a lot of these kids are Micronesian, and a lot of these kids are impoverished. And that's what puts them together. So I try not to focus on what makes them different. I really try to focus on what makes them the same. And I actually don't try to master someone else's culture. I just try to respect it. And it's a difficult role to do, because you want to learn as much as you can, but sometimes you can be a little invasive, and you should allow others to speak and express themselves. So that's how I use cultural competency in my life.